When it came to this utter domination of the Patriots, what was the portion of the game that you found the most intriguing?
So it was really cool at the end to see it's the greatest, defeat that Bill Belichick's ever taken. And I know I heard you guys obviously right when I came on talking about this coming week and traveling and things like that. 2 years ago when the Cowboys beat the Patriots, it really felt like this, beat your chest thing. Like, hey, we just did it. We beat Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Who cares if Tom Brady's not there? I honestly didn't feel that yesterday, and that intrigued me. And I wrote about Mike McCarthy today at our site, and I think that it's a product of that. These little things, don't do it for us anymore. We're getting kind of used to doing things that felt improbable and difficult. And obviously the Cowboys haven't won the Super Bowl. I'm not suggesting having any parades or hanging any banners or things like that. But, they literally handed the greatest coach of all time the worst loss that he has ever experienced. And it was almost an expectation from all of us. And so I'm fascinated by how the, general expectation has been elevated by them. And I know that the Cardinals game is going to kind of stick out like a sore thumb, and everyone's going to say, well, maybe that's who they really are. But they've played 4 games so far this season, and in 75% of them, it has not even been a game for whoever they've been playing.
Obviously, the defense was the story yesterday for the Dallas Cowboys, specifically with Deron Bland and his 2 interceptions. What can you take with you most after having that bounce-back performance against the Patriots that you want to continue to see going forward to build on this defense this year?
I think that they're a group that has to, feel a little slighted, feel a little jaded. I know that they've kind of said as much about, maybe smelling themselves heading into the Arizona game. I think they like that. McCarthy's infamous quote about being nobody's underdog. I think they like having a little bit of doubt. And so I think that, they, to a degree, kind of need that. And that was kind of obvious yesterday. Right? Yesterday wasn't a game. It was a decision. They decided that they were going to vanquish the Patriots, that they were going to remind everyone who they really were. And they did it, right? There was nothing they wanted to do that they couldn't do, all red zone stuff aside. And so that's the mentality they need. And it's very, very difficult to keep that, on a week-to-week basis in the NFL, which is why, last night the Chiefs struggle and the Eagles are still kind of trying to find themselves. It's impossible. But I think that they have to find a way to channel that killer instinct or whatever you want to call it on a week-to-week basis. And I don't think it's hard this week, given that they're going up against the big bad boogeyman in the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. We're talking to RJ Ochoa, blogging the boys right here on 105 through the fan. I think you make a good point, RJ, pointing out just how inconsistent, even through a quarter of the season, that all of the teams have been, even the ones that we consider to be the best in the league. But that place of inconsistency for this team feels like it's been somewhat the offense. And within that, I kind of made an observation, and I want to know your perspective on it. It feels like Michael Gallup and Dak Prescott have a better connection out of schedule than they do on schedule, within the structure of the offense. Have you noticed the same thing, and do you feel that worm kind of turning?
Yeah, I really do. I'm glad you brought up MG. I wrote something about him that'll probably be out tomorrow. It's so great to see him back. I mean, I don't know anyone who isn't overjoyed about that. And it's not just that he's having success, but he's doing so in a physical manner. And I think that, we forget because it frankly was so long ago, but Dak had this great connection with MG. I mean, Michael Gallup he was never Deshaun Jackson, but he was kind of this deep field threat. And so he has really kind of improved his game, not just in general, but over these last 2 weeks. I know Bobby Belt, the sweetest, most perfect, most handsome guy in the whole world, tweeted out after week 2 that he was last in the NFL in terms of yards per route run. And he's upped that figure considerably over the course of the last 2 weeks. And so, I mean, he has really kind of found what's working for him. And it's obviously a tight rapport with Dak. And I know we're all kind of like, well, where's the Brandon Cooks show and things like that? And that's something everyone keeps saying, well, where are the deep shots to Brandon Cooks? And I think the answer is well, they don't need deep shots, right? They're not here for deep shots. They're here to just nurse, beers all night long. They're too old for shots. They're way past that point in their career. The offense wants to move methodically and kind of be a bit of a death by 1,000 paper cut sort of proposition. And so Michael Gallup, I think, fits that rapport really well right now. But, I mean, we're only 4 weeks in. There will come a stretch and a span in time where it will be the Brandon Cook show or the Jalen Tolbert show, or CeeDee Lamb will, go Super Saiyan or whatever, or the offense has to carry the defense and they all have to, contribute. But it is really awesome to see Michael Gallup back at the fold.
And I'm glad you took it to that place, because I think that like a lot of the complaints about Dak Prescott and the offense kind of is underlying that idea of when it's necessary to get big chunks or to carry the day. Do you think it's possible that it happens? So I turn that question to you, RJ. Do you think that this offense does, in fact, have the ability to, when necessary, because you're right, they do want to just kind of matriculate down the field, but do you think they have what is necessary that when they need chunk plays that they can go and get them?
Well, I mean, we've seen, if we're just talking about Dak, we've seen him be the quarterback of the number one offense in the NFL, right? Like, I know it hasn't happened this year or whatever, but I mean, there's proof of concept, right? Like, he's done it in the building, in the uniform, right? Like, I mean, it's not like something we're trying to imagine. It's not something he did in college or anything like that. So, yeah, and I mean, again, I know the red zone stuff is kind of, having everybody, hover over the panic button a little bit on offense. But, I mean, there is something to the fact that they've had all these opportunities. And, again, like, they have a point differential of plus 83. And we can sit here and complain about how they're not scoring enough. That is so stupidly amazing, like when you really think about it that way. And so, yeah, I fully trust that they can find themselves, and they're fortunate they're having these issues while they're blowing teams out. But those issues cannot happen this week. You're going to ultimately reach a point where you're going to play somebody who has more talent on offense, who can break through your almighty defense. And, again, that opportunity is coming up on Sunday night.
What's the headline this week for you that you'll be paying most attention to as the Cowboys get ready for the San Francisco 49ers, especially after what's happened to this team against them in the last 2 years?
I got to say, I was, a little surprised today to hear Mike McCarthy and everyone kind of, acknowledge that this is like a measuring stick for them. CD said before the Cardinals game, when they were 2-0, that, this isn't, you can't really measure us. We're only 2-0. Week 5 is what we're looking forward to. And he was like, dude, you got 2 more games to get to before this. And, like, I find it fascinating that they are so willing to call out the Niners that way. And I don't mean that they're, being brash or silly about it, but, I mean, that says something. Like, the fact that they're so willing to acknowledge that the 49ers live rent-free in their minds and that they own them, I respect it. And, if they lose, I mean, obviously it sucks. But if they win, holy crap, it's the coolest thing in the world, right? But, I mean, Mike McCarthy's been around the block a lot. He's obviously been a part of a championship team. There's a lot of seasoned veterans who have accomplished a lot of things in the NFL. I find it very interesting that they are making that the headline, that they are saying this is not a normal regular season game for us. This is effectively a playoff game on the first full weekend in October.